everyone, to the Leadership in Quarters podcast, the interview series where leaders come to share their perspectives on different leadership topics. I'm Josh Selden, and today's guest is Stephanie Ramirez. Stephanie Ramirez is a strategic marketing consultant, brand strategist, speaker, and identity-focused coach who helps high-achieving professionals during their transition from traditional paths into more authentic, self-directed lives and businesses. After more than 15 years working in corporate brand and social media marketing with major brands and companies, Stephanie experienced firsthand what it feels like to be successful on paper while still feeling disconnected from who you really are. That realization led her to build a business centered on personal leadership, identity, and visibility. Today, Stephanie works with entrepreneurs and professionals who are ready to redefine success in their own terms, gain clarity and confidence through embodiment to decondition and build self-trust. Her work blends practical strategy with deeper identity work, helping people build businesses, personal brands, and careers that actually reflect who they are and reconnect with what lights them up outside of titles, roles, and labels society gave them. Outside of her coaching and consulting work, Stephanie is a competitive Latin ballroom dancer, voiceover talent, and speaker who believes leadership begins with self-trust, creative expression, and the courage to live life on your own terms. So welcome, Stephanie.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Josh.
Glad to have you. I'm super excited for today's topic. It's something that I think a lot of people deal with and need to do in terms of being able to self-lead their own leadership. And I think it's something that everybody's going to be really excited to hear about.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. So if you can, as we start this off, I know I'd say a leader probably thinks about how they lead others, and that's their viewpoint on a leadership style. But what does it actually mean to be a self-led leader first?
I think for me, putting it straightforward, it's like you're not leading from purely conditioning. And I say that in the sense of you're not outsourcing your identity or anything externally outside of you, like any of your decision making or any of that. I feel like as we grow up, many of us, most of us, are conditioned to follow the rules, follow expectations of our parents in school. And then when we obviously go into the corporate field and start working, it's listening to our boss and management and trying to basically do the right thing and be responsible and be the reliable one. Obviously, be that go-to person because we've needed to succeed, to survive. That's just how it's been. And I think nowadays more and more of it's happening. Rarely do you ever see people just leading from themselves. Because I think for most high achievers, there's this fear of, oh, if I choose myself and do things the way I want to do it, I'm disobeying somebody, I'm disappointing someone, I'm letting somebody down, I'm doing something against what I'm normally used to doing. So it's better to sacrifice our values, our needs, our desires, what we really want to do for others. And so I feel like because we do that, when we continue on in life, there's always this kind of disconnected feeling of, oh, I've spent so much time doing what others wanted of me. I've never got to do what I wanted to do. So you hit those like midlife crisis and people do all these crazy things that they've always wanted to do when they were younger because they felt so suppressed. And so I feel like being self-led is just giving yourself permission to live life the way you want to live it, a life that you feel aligned, like what feels true to you, and having the courage to actually do things and live that way and be that way and work that way and define success that way. And I feel like that's something we're not used to. So when we see other people do it, it encourages us to be like, oh, you can do what you want to do. You don't have to do what everybody tells you to do because that's how you were supposed to do things. So I think self-led is just truly listening within yourself and having that self-trust and giving yourself that permission to live the life that you want to live, honestly.
And I have to imagine it gives the person a lot of energy and excitement and momentum as well, because when you can live your own values and you're not living somebody else's values and you have this personal connection to the work you're doing instead of somebody else's connection, it's got to be energizing for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it's just like this sigh of relief. Oh, finally, I can do things the way I want to do it. And it's funny, you take the simple things of just making decisions on your own or even setting up your own schedule, your own calendar. Oh, I don't have to be in back-to-back meetings. I can take a break. Wow. It's like this life-changing thing. It's, yeah, you can do those things when you live a self-led life.
Yeah, it seems to give the power back to the person where so many people, I think the example you gave is one that everybody can probably relate to, these back-to-back meetings. And there are days where I'm like, I hope I get a bathroom break today because my meetings are back to back and I'd like to eat today for lunch. And it's one of those things that everybody is so, I think, afraid to say no or to say, hold on, I need this time and have that little pushback because they are so conditioned to doing things on everybody else's terms and not really looking to themselves and what they themselves need.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so normal. I feel there's no judgment there. I think I've been there. We've all been there. If just like, no, like wanting to just go with the flow, just continue on and don't rock the boat. Let's just keep things the way they are. They've worked. But you're sacrificing yourself and you're not being able to really choose the things that you want to do that really fill your cup to make you show up
Mhm.
better at your job or your role with just more intention and more energy because you're so drained of doing things for others so many times.
Right. And I think, like we said, it seems like everybody's conditioned over time. Like you said, even from when we're younger to now, through our parents and work and everything, we're conditioned to feel this way. What are some successful approaches that you've seen to break this conditioning and jump more into a self-led life instead of just going on everybody's terms?
Yeah, I think it's honestly like taking advantage of quiet moments or being intentional with just moments during the day. I know there's not many quiet breaks between everybody's busy schedules. I know everybody likes to be super productive and always feel like output, let's just do things and just be busy for the sake of being busy. But if there is any time that anybody has during the day, even if it's a few minutes on your commute or in between meetings, of just trying to get really honest with yourself and intentional of what would my ideal life be right now? Or what would my ideal
Mhm.
break be? Like, what would I want to be doing? And listening to what's coming up constantly and what keeps coming up. And it can be little things of, oh, I've always wanted to like take a walk on the beach, or I've always wanted to, I don't know, go work at this coffee shop. And it starts with those little hints of things that you want to start doing. And then
Mhm.
like it starts coming up of, oh, I really like having this quiet time. And then what goes through my mind. And so like you start picking up on things that you want to do and start developing like, oh, I really enjoy quality time by myself. And that starts kind of like building this value set and you start getting really intentional. Oh, if I really like the morning time, why don't I push all my meetings to the afternoon? And it's like those little habits every day build long-term habits. You're like, oh, I want to live a life where my workday starts at 12. I want to have the whole morning to maybe work out or have time to walk on the beach because that's where I feel more energized. And so you start building your schedule like that. And maybe it's finding a career or a job or designing a business where your work starts at 12. And those ripple effects start having a bigger impact because that affects your health, affects your mental health. One thing leads to so many other things, and you become so much more fuller as a person because you're able to just set those boundaries. And it's hard. Obviously, it's going to start with pushing back on one thing and pushing back on another, but it's understanding that you're not sacrificing yourself. You're basically putting yourself first. And once you do that, you're able to show up better for others. So it's changing the perspective on things that maybe you want to change in your life and just trying to figure out a different way of looking at it and being able to take small steps because those small changes add up to bigger changes that affect your life and long-term longevity.
I feel like it's like the weight loss mentality where everybody thinks this is like a light switch and I decide today I want to lose weight and then it happens tomorrow. And it's not. It's these small steps over time that lead to this big final weight loss. And it's this thing too. These small steps, you're not going to go and decide today, hey, I want to take more control. And then tomorrow I've got full control. It's usually not that simple. You have to take those small intentional steps to really enable what you're going for.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, it was like picking up hobbies because once I felt that sense of freedom of doing something that I wanted to do outside of work, that's what led me to be like, oh, I want to live a life where I can do more hobbies and still work. How can I do that? And so you find a way to make it happen because it really matters to you and you identify how important it is to you. And you're like, wait, can there be a world where I can do all of it? Maybe not all of it at the same time, but still make time for the things that you want to do. But it's just being aware and intentional and curious. Oh, I really like this thing. Let me pursue it a little more and see what happens. And then from there, it's a whole trickle effect.
And it's so important to not discount and discredit what you want to go do because it's so easy to do exactly what you said and start making this list and these little small steps I want to take and then find reasons why I can't. I want to go do this. I want to go walk on the beach in the morning, but I got this meeting in the morning where I have to get into work, or I want to start going for a walk in the middle of the day and start exercising and trying to take care of myself more. Oh, I don't think I'm going to be able to get away from my desk to go do that. And it's so easy for us to build that mentality of finding reasons why we can't do something instead of putting that energy towards finding ways to actually do what we want to go do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the first steps that I work with whenever I'm coaching anybody. It's like looking at your schedule and being so intentional of time blocking for yourself. Again, there's always going to be things where you can't miss. There's always going to be an emergency meeting or some sort of commitment that you're going to have to maybe work around. Like that's the reality of life. But at the same time, there is a lot of power that you have in control of your schedule where you can say, you know what, I want to build my schedule this week, my calendar around the things that I want to do, and all my meetings and everything can go around that. and intentionally building that life where you have that business or that lifestyle where you can do that and intentionally have, oh, Wednesday's my meetings day, but Thursday's my day off because I want to spend the whole day traveling at the beach, whatever. So I think it's just like making your life around the things that you want to do and who you are and how you function. Like I'm not necessarily a very early morning person every single day. Some days, yes,
Yeah.
some days, no, I want to sleep in some days. So those days, I'm going to make sure I'm intentional about how I schedule. And then other days, I can let it loose. So just like knowing who I am as a person, what I like to
Mhm.
do, and then building my schedule around that.
And I feel like you can make systems support that as well, because a lot of times, and I do think this is part of the conditioning that we have over time, we like having control and we're in this role and we have to go do these things. Or I feel like I need to be in every meeting. And when you do reevaluate your calendar, you can be like, do I really need to be in that meeting? Or if the answer is yes today, what needs to happen to make it so I don't need to be in that meeting a month from now? And is that building capability in the people who work for me, so there aren't three people from my team all in the same meeting, because that's just a waste of time and energy for all of us? And how do we then create these systems that surround us and support us to be able to then give us that freedom to go do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you nailed it. Absolutely. I feel like that's definitely really intentional. And again, it's not like the flip of a switch, like tomorrow I can drop everything and build the schedule. It's going to
Mm,
start with little steps to get there, being honest with yourself and yeah, understanding, do I really need to be in this meeting? And maybe having people help you be accountable of, oh no, I can take this. Being able to not have so much control over everything because that's where you limit yourself. If you don't
right.
control the team that you work with, or you want to control everything, you control nothing at the same time because you're like a slave to everything. So it's relinquishing that control and knowing that things will be okay if you're not in everything, if you're not in everything all day, because that's just exhausting for someone to do all of that.
It is. And we aren't as important as we think we are sometimes. And the world will move on if we're not in a certain meeting. And our teams are capable and probably more capable than we think they are. And if they have questions, they need help, they'll ask. And they will most likely be ready to jump in and take the reins from us, where we don't need to be in every single thing. And people may be worried that it's like, hey, I'm not in there, I'm not there to support you. And they'll be like, hey, I'm fine, I don't need you in there. But we don't even get to the point where we have that conversation. We just make assumptions and we're like, I need to be there because if I don't, everything's going to fall apart. And it's pretty rare that everything falls apart just because we're not in a meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like building that self-trust. I feel like a lot
Yeah.
of us are just like go in the motions and work on autopilot, assuming that they have to be in everything to make sure they have the visibility and all of that. And there's always intentions of wanting to be in everything. But I
Mhm.
think part of being in leadership and also being part of a team is being able to have that trust. And I think people will always attach and really navigate towards people who have that trusting factor and who are loyal and who are all of that, but also who are just showing up and can actually trust the people that they work with to know that they'll be able to rise to the occasion. So I feel like giving people the opportunity to also be visible can also help you as a team leader as well.
Yeah, a lot of people don't think that you show up as a great leader or a great person based on the actions of your team and not necessarily the actions of yourself. And everybody's so used to being that executor that, hey, look at everything I did. Here's everything I did myself. And instead, it's a here's everything my team did. And oh, by the way, I was there to support them and break down barriers and build capability in them, which, aside from everything obviously that they did, help support them to do these things. And that shows up a lot brighter sometimes than these personal individual actions that I did.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a team effort. If you win, we
Yeah.
all win kind of mentality. So I think it's better to be that person to help rise others and uplift others because, again, they're just an example of what the team represents, not just you being in everything.
Now, I am curious, how in these kind of situations can someone take more control of themselves when they don't necessarily have the title to support the action of taking this? And what I mean by that is leaders over time have to figure out how to insert influence on people. And so if I want to say, no, I can't make this meeting, hey, I need this time, can we please move these meetings? But I don't have the title and I'm talking to either a peer who's an equal title or managing up to somebody else. How do I influence that situation and move forward with taking this control, knowing that it's not as easy to just say, we're going to go do it?
Yeah, I think it's so easy, obviously, within organizations to look at authority or look at titles or look at hierarchy. And again, obviously, there is that level of this person reports into this person. You have to follow those rules within corporate. But I think there's so much to be said about you as a person and being so self-rooted and clear on who you are and the role that you provide into that team or the organization to be able to speak on what you're good at and your expertise and your skill set. And I think those feel like, oh, just because you're above me more. And again, that's not necessarily equating that. You obviously were hired for the skills that you bring, the strengths that you bring, who you are as a person, and just the overall energy. And so I feel like people doubt that just because, oh, I don't have that title, I don't have value here. And I think that's such a big misconception. I think the more that you're honest with yourself, the more that you're able to dig deep into your values and understand, oh, I was brought onto this team because of so and so, be very clear on who you are as a person. I think people will always gravitate towards that energy, that clarity. Because I think when you talk in any meeting, when you walk into any room, the people who are confident in themselves and who are just clear on themselves and they carry this certain energy of, I'm here to contribute because I know what I'm contributing. No one can deny that. And especially nowadays where Gen Z and all the new generations are coming through, I think everybody has a point of view. It doesn't mean because you have 20 plus years of experience. Yes, obviously you have expertise and value, but just because somebody who's straight out of college doesn't mean that they don't have value. It's everybody has that point of view that you don't have. So it's owning that point of view and speaking up in meetings and contributing where you see fit and even being proactive about it. Because I think the more that you can see points of views that others don't, that's where you can keep a company innovative and young and hip and up with the trends and provide a different perspective that maybe somebody more senior may not see. I think I've seen that in every role. The most senior person obviously can lead the team and has more value and has like expertise in the sense of they've been around for longer. But then we've had people come in straight out of college who contribute the coolest ideas we've never thought of and huge campaigns. We're like, whoa, all the minds here came up with this. And so I think there's just so much value, but I think it's honestly just getting clear again with yourself and having a coach or having somebody accountable to help bring that out in you. And two, if you don't have that, because I feel like there's so much to be learned in careers where you're new and you're building that confidence. So again, just having that energy and that clarity that you need to be able to know what you own and contribute
Mhm.
that to your team.
You mentioned having a coach, and I think that's so important for everybody to hear. Obviously, with everything else you just said, is having that support system, whatever it is, whether it's a coach or a mentor or somebody that you can use to help you start having those conversations. Because I believe one of the biggest things people really need to do and work on is getting out of their own head. And especially when it comes to hierarchy and roles and titles and everything, because so often, rather than going and doing everything that you just mentioned, I'm going to sit here and go, it makes no sense to speak up in this meeting. It makes no sense to go give my opinion. I am fresh out of college and I'm working with somebody who's been here 20 years. They don't care about my opinion and they don't need my opinion. And it's so easy to make up all of these different things in my head, in my imagination. And usually the imagination is so much worse than reality is.
Yeah.
And that's why I think having that coach, having that mentor, having somebody is so important, because I have this unbiased person that I can then go tell everything to of what I'm thinking. And they can be like, hey, that may not be the best idea, and here's some reasons why. Or for sure, it doesn't matter that you're 2 months with the company and this person's 20 years with the company. That's a great idea. You should definitely go bring it up, and that can give that confidence and momentum boost that you need to then go execute.
Yeah. And I feel like that's normal coming into a space that's obviously been around for so long and you're brand new and you're like, how can I contribute here? Even though you can contribute, but you don't really see that because obviously there's that intimidation, maybe that lack of confidence yet, and all of that. But I think it's great to have somebody, whether it's a coach or a mentor or someone within the organization, to be able to reflect that back to you, to be able to be that mirror for you, and even just be that push of confidence to just give you that boost that you need to be able to contribute that idea or deliver something that you feel like, oh, I'm not senior enough to do that. So I feel like for me, I don't think I would be able to navigate going up the corporate ladder that I did without having any mentors. I've always had a mentor or coach in every organization I've had to be able to give me that push that I've needed to give me that boost of confidence, to help me see myself better, because it's so hard to be so confident coming out straight off the bat. I feel like, again, we had this conditioning growing up that we need to have 20 plus years of experience to be valuable at any company, but you're valuable at any stage that you are. You bring an
Right.
experience that you walk a different path of life than everybody. So why couldn't you contribute? And I think it's sometimes having somebody else there to tell you that and reflect that back to you for you to be like, yeah, you're right. I do have an idea that could really be this huge idea basically for a company. And you don't really think, oh, it's a small idea. That's not important, but it could be something huge, but you wouldn't know until you actually pitch it.
Yeah, exactly. And we focus so much on the individual right now, trying to latch onto that self-led leadership mentality. But there's also so much ownership on that person's leader themselves to create a psychologically safe environment in the first place so these conversations can happen. Because everything that we said is well and good, but when you have these, and I'll say stereotypical older leaders not open to new ideas, shuts everybody down the second they bring up something that's different than what they believe or what they think, it's so difficult, even with the mentor support, even with these coach supports, for these people to speak up. Where if you're a leader and you can build an environment where everybody is respected, everybody's opinion is respected, their ideas are respected, and it doesn't mean you have to do every single thing they bring up all the time, but when people feel safe bring these ideas up, maybe they bring up 9 ideas out of 10 that aren't great, but that 10th idea could be a game changer for your group and your business, and that will never come up if you don't build that kind of culture.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's so important too. I think psychological safety is important in any team, whether you're trying to reach really big goals or have, like you're saying, having really elite standards. I think it's like for any team in any organization, I think in any relationship, partnership, just the fact of being safe allows you to be you. And I think building that environment and that energy and just building that within yourself of you emitting that energy of you're safe around me allows people to contribute ideas, allows people to do their best work and to be able to feel their best at this job and reach their potential and all of that. I feel like so much good can come from it once anybody feels safe to do. And I think with leaders, you have to have that responsibility, especially if you're
Mhm.
guiding, you're leading, and you're influencing a group of people. I think that's so important because I think at the end of the day, you have to be so rooted and confident in yourself that you can do that. Because, like you were saying before, some people feel like they need to be in every single meeting because they need to have that control. But at the same time, that can easily make an employee feel like, oh, I'm not trustworthy, or I can't do this on my own because you have to always be there in this meeting with me. Whether it's somebody senior or someone more like junior level, I think at the end of the day, you also need to understand too, when you're leading somebody, you have to separate the role and the job and the actual task instead of the person too. Because if something was a failure, it's not saying that person is a failure. And separating that, I think, is huge because I think sometimes leaders don't really communicate that clearly. And it's
Mhm.
easy to assume that you're talking about the person, especially when it's negative in tone. It's, oh, is that person that or is the task? So focusing on the work that everybody's doing together versus saying the team is so and so, like the work is, and separating that because somebody can really diminish their own self-worth and attach that to the actual task that the team had to do if the team leader is obviously not leading it in the most productive way and you're not really clearly communicating that differentiation.
Yeah, and it's so tough for people to come to work having to constantly be in protective mode.
Mhm.
And if you can come to work and bring your full self to work, that's when you're going to get the best out of everybody. So, one, creating that environment, that safe environment where people can bring their full selves to work gets you there. But then, like you said, it's so easy to jump to this is a people issue. We failed because of this person. We failed because this team didn't do things, instead of either looking internally first as the team lead or the leader, or looking at the systems or the task and saying, what did we learn from this? Maybe it wasn't the people, or maybe the people did every single thing right and we still failed. Why is this? But that takes effort and that takes time. And instead, I can just say, it's Josh's fault, it's Stephanie's fault, and I can move on. And that then creates that protective mode again. And now the people won't lean forward and take risks. They won't try to do these big things that could be these game changing activities for what we need.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so true. And again, we're not really sure what the motive could be there, but it's also just understanding that never feels good for anybody to have
Mhm.
fingers pointed at them. So again, it's losing that trust and that credibility and that integrity with the team leader. And I feel like that's where the kind of just like that mistrust is placed because it's, oh, I want to look up to somebody who's also going to help me rise as well. And it doesn't feel like that in this environment. It doesn't feel safe to be me. So I'm going to go back to my shell and do what I'm told because that's what I
Right.
have to do and suppressing what I could be or how I could show up here. And I don't think that feels good for any organization or any team.
Not at all. And Stephanie, you mentioned energy, and I feel like we mentioned it quick, and so I don't want people to lose track of that as well. I think energy is so important, and what you've alluded to is being able to influence and build a culture around people's energy and the energy they bring. How can leaders use both their own energy and then the awareness of kind of the energy in the room and the energy of their people to help shape the culture that needs to be built there?
Yeah, I think, oh my gosh, I'm so big about energy. I love talking about that topic. Because I feel like energy doesn't lie. You can say what you want to say and you say this and that, but then when the energy that you admit when you're saying it and how you
Mhm.
act, just the energy around all of that speaks volumes, especially with the
Right.
people around you, and people can easily pick it up. And so I think that's something that it's just your truth being exerted, basically. But I think it's easy to just get caught up in what you're used to saying and doing and not really paying attention to your energy. So I feel like that is just becoming more aware of that. And I think a way to do that little check of just of a vibe check of like, how am I coming off? Is talking to your team, is talking to the people around you and asking them, how do you feel like I'm showing up? Looking around and seeing the behavior. How are people acting around you? Are they
Mhm.
reciprocating? Are they bouncing off this energy? Do you feel like a good flow is happening when you're showing up in your morning meeting? Or is everybody on their phone not paying attention, could care less? They're just very much down. Or are they like, oh, yeah, let's get this. Let's go. Come on, team. There's so much more that could be said about your energy and how people reciprocate. And it's so easy once you have this energy to amplify it in others and encourage others to also feel that way. You don't have to do much. It's just showing up in that energy. So if you're noticing and you're picking up on the behavior of others, if they're not as energetic, it's, oh, how am I showing up? And I think few leaders really take a step back and see how they're showing up. It's more like, oh, everybody's not in energy. Everybody's having a bad day. Or it's, oh, no, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the one who's not showing up with the right energy here. Maybe I'm the one whose actions aren't representing what I'm saying. And it's taking that step back and asking yourself those similar questions like that. Because I feel like that's a good check to be like, oh, like, how am I really coming off? Just being honest with yourself there.
Energy is so contagious, and people don't realize that. If I'm a leader and I'm coming in the room and I'm just having a bad day and everybody knows it, they can feel it, they're gonna maybe avoid me, or maybe I snap at them and then that puts them in a bad mood, and then the next person they talk to, they snap on them, and it's like the flu, it just spreads. And in general, it's more on the negative side than the positive side, because leaders don't understand what their own energy is. But it does happen on the positive side. When you walk in a room and you're smiling, you're asking people how they're doing, you've got this positive energy that's exuding from you, it
Yeah.
spreads. And it is a huge difference between where you can influence with your energy and when you go in with this negative kind of concealed energy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like it's so easy too in the mundane, the day-to-day routine. I just have this like autopilot energy. Okay, guys, let's do this. Let's do that. This is what we have to do this week and so
Right.
on. But again, people pick up on that. And am I leading intentionally? Am I leading this week to really uplift? What am I trying to achieve here and really question instead of just going on the mundane autopilot of every week we do the same thing. Here's the same energy. It's like, am I leading intentionally or am I continuing on with the same patterns that I'm used to? Because that doesn't feel like uplifting and making it feel like you want to show up today because it feels like a brand new day. It feels, oh, okay, same old work. Let me just get it done, go home kind of thing. I think leaders also want to be intentional about how they're showing up. So just being intentional, like, what kind of energy do I want to show up with today? And questioning that instead of being like, ah, it's another Monday. Let's just go on with it. Yeah.
Yeah. And aside from your own energy, I feel like leaders need to start building that muscle to really understand the energy of their organization. Because while we can influence people's energy, there are times where people are just having bad days or bad things are happening in their life and they are low in energy. And I've had them, you've had the leaders that come in the room and they're like, how are you doing today, Stephanie? And you're like, I'm fine. And they're like, that's great. And then they just walk back and they can't read the room and read the energy. And being able to be a leader that can read that energy, and then instead of walking by, you stop and go, I really don't think things are fine. Tell me what's going on, as long as you feel comfortable doing that and being able to talk through it, being aware of that and being able to have that conversation can then in turn maybe raise their energy because they again have found a safe space to really talk through things and can say, I am low energy, I'm not having a good day, and at least come to terms with that.
Yeah. I think that's huge. I think empathy is one of the top character traits I basically respect in a leader. And I really empathize so much because I feel like that empathy is huge. At the end of the day, we're all in this together, all trying to navigate the life world, everything together. And I think we all have each other. And I think being a human first before anything, before putting any corporate goal, I think is huge because you want to make sure you are in tune with the people around you. We all have our bad days, like you're saying, we're all going through life things that we're not exposing on the surface. And
Mhm.
it's just being able to navigate the workload around that and helping each other out. Because again, if one person wins, we all win. We're all in this together. That's why I feel like hierarchy, titles, and all of that don't mean anything if you're not a human being first, because people are always going to navigate towards people that they trust. And if you care about me, if you actually care about who I am as a person, I'm going to trust you, whether you're senior vice president or a manager. It doesn't matter what the title is to me. You're a person that cares, and I'm going to trust you, and I'm going to consistently show up for you because you care about me. And I think what better incentive for any team?
That is so critically important. Before we wrap up, Stephanie, is there anything else that you want to share with the group?
No, I think for me, I think the biggest takeaway too for anybody, I think it's just look at the people around you living the life that you want to live. Because I think as much as I can give you, obviously as a coach, strategy, tools, questions, and really reflect back to you where I feel like people can start living self-led lives, it's seeing that it's being done and seeing that it's doable. And I think for me, it's following people within my life who I'm like, oh wow, they're living on a beach some days, and then some days they're working and they're really creating impact, but they're also filling their own cup. That's doable. Okay, let me start creating what that looks like for me. So I think it's just being curious around the people around you and just being able to give yourself permission that there are other ways to succeed and other ways to live and other ways to be. And it doesn't have to be the way that you've always been taught and taking that step towards that. So just having the courage to live a self-led life.
Great. I love ending on that. That's a great thought, and it is possible. To remind everybody, this has been Stephanie Ramirez giving us all the tools that we need to live that self led life. So we appreciate that. If you want to get in touch with Stephanie, we'll have all of her information on the YouTube page, on the posting that we have out, so everybody can get in touch with her. If for whatever reason you can't get in touch with her, you can get a hold of me and I will make sure you both get together. But I'm sure she'd love to hear from anybody on this topic because this is such an energizing and engaging topic. For any other information or to catch this podcast anywhere else, you can like, follow, and subscribe to it on all the podcast platforms, all the audio platforms, or the YouTube page. If you want to watch the video, you can subscribe to my Instagram, the YouTube page, or my TikTok at Lead In Quarters, and email me with any questions or ideas you may have for future episodes, or if you're interested in being a future guest at leadinquarters@gmail.com. But Stephanie, I truly appreciate everything that you brought here today. It is something that I think, as we talked, people sometimes don't believe is possible, but it is possible. And the tools and the thought processes you brought here really show people how to approach this topic and this situation and give them those baby steps to get to that big step they're going towards to make this a reality. And so I really appreciate you bringing that to the episode today.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation.